In this video, I'm going through some design choices that are available to you if you use Toastmasters or the WordPress for Toastmasters solution. I want to talk about how you make the basic upfront choice and as well as how you can make customizations within any of the available designs. So I'm on my demo site here showing a particular theme, or a theme is a set of design templates. And if we look at the online presenters Toastmasters website, it's very similar. So this is a real site that uses a similar setup of the big dramatic image up top, and the menu is superimposed over that. Now, if we want a different look, there are several different looks available to us. I can go to this design themes screen, and it shows us a number of additional designs that are available that we can switch to. When somebody signs up in the beginning for a Toastmasters.org website, one of the first decisions they make is which design do they want to use as a starting point. So these are also available here. We can preview them and get an idea of what our content might look like in that. Now, if I'm the administrator of this site and I want to edit the words and pictures that appear in the main body of the page, then I would go to this edit page link up here. I could also get to it through the dashboard, but often I find it's easier to just navigate through the front end of the website to what I'm looking for and click on edit. And so here we have the headline, the body of the post, and also this theme is set up to use this featured image up top. So the featured image is something that is set up to be given particularly dramatic display in a WordPress theme. On blog posts, it's often used in the index of the latest blog posts. You'll see the featured image, the headline, and a little excerpt with a click to read more link. So this is where we would edit the main content of the post. But if we want to edit elements like the menu or the actual layout, we can make changes. We can go into what's called the site editor. Now, I would hope that some people will choose one of these themes and they will find it move-in ready and wonderful. But I can change all sorts of things about this site. The colors, the size of this header image, whether we use a header image at all. I can change all those things through the site editor. But the main reason that everybody, even if you're happy with the theme as is, would go in here is to change the menus. This is a main menu up top. And if I make changes to the menu, even in other templates, the page template that's different from the front page, but it still includes this navigation up top, and changes to the navigation component will stay the same. Also, many of the pages will include these social media links, and if I change the social media links, they'll be changed throughout the site. So I'm going to click in here, and I might have to click a couple of times because what I'm trying to do is I'm telling it that I'm editing my front page template, but I specifically want to edit the header. If you notice, that changed in the sidebar from front page to now header with cover image. And within the header with cover image, I want to select the navigation component. Another way to see how these things are nested inside each other, these are blocks nested inside blocks. It's a whole Lego palace that's been created here. There's this outline view or list view over here that shows that I'm inside the header, I'm inside the cover. So the cover is this cover image component, and I've selected navigation. Now we're not seeing any image for the cover. If I navigate up here and select cover, I'll see that this is set to use the featured image. But it could also be set to a specific image that I selected here within the site editor. I just make it the featured image to make it a little bit easier to change. At the same time, I'm changing the main content of my post. And then down here we have a placeholder for the content. So this is sort of an abstract view of the page. This is where the main content will go. I've got settings here for how wide this content will be, and I'll show you how to change some of those things later. I have a placeholder for the title, but the specific title isn't shown here, just a placeholder. Here's where the title goes. Here's how large the title is, and the title is centered. Okay, so within this abstract view, there are all sorts of things I can change, but again, one of the most common things I'll want to change is the menu. So if I add a new page to my site that's important, and I want people to be able to find it easily, I can select the navigation component. And as long as I have this sidebar open, this makes it a little bit easier to work with for adding something and putting it on the menu. There is also just a little plus sign down the end here where I can say add, and what do I want to add? I'll add the test page. But then if I don't want that appearing down the end, I think it's often easier to go up and display this outline view in the right-hand sidebar. And from here, I can drag and drop and say that this is actually something I want to be right at the beginning, right after the home page line. And if I decide that I don't want that element at all, I can also say delete. Oh, I've got to be careful there. I'm going to do Control Z to get my navigation menu back. So here's a good pointer. It's important to be clear whether you've selected the navigation menu or the specific item within the navigation menu. So it's the specific page link that I want to delete. And the way that we switch between the two is when I've selected the link, I'll see this little compass up here. It's trying to tell me that I'm within the navigation component, and here's where I can click to go up a level. If I wanted to go up a level from the navigation component, I can also click select row, and row is the layout component that defines how wide this whole thing will be. So any of the existing calendar items I can select again. I can either click twice or I can click through the sidebar to make sure I have the calendar item selected. If I needed to actually change the address of the page, I could manually do that here. If I wanted this to say events, I can change the label, but it still points to the exact same page. I can also add menus that include submenus. So this little drop-down list that appears is just a way of displaying the information a little bit more compactly, as well as showing relationships between things. So maybe I have a page that I'm going to add called resources. So we add the resources page, and then we can click on that, and there's this little icon here, add submenu. So it's a little hook thing showing that there's something that goes underneath. And then we can click here, and we'll add pathways, tips, and tricks. And then maybe we also want to add a link to the Toastmasters International website. So here I can just put in the website address and change the label to be Toastmasters International. And so now we will get a little drop-down menu underneath that. Now another thing I probably want to change, if I do want social media icons appearing on my site, you'll see placeholders for them down here, but you would want to put in your specific Facebook page. And actually on a new site or a site that's just switched to this theme, you should see that there's actually nothing entered here. And it won't be showing up on the front end of the site until you enter an address. But we can put in an address, a specific Facebook page address that we want to direct people to. And then if we have a LinkedIn page, we can specify that as well. Maybe this club doesn't have a LinkedIn page, so we're just going to remove that. So this is sort of a special kind of menu for your social media. If I want to add a different social network, I first have to navigate up from this Facebook component to the container component for the social media. And from here, there's a little plus sign, so I can say, I don't have LinkedIn, but I do have a Mastodon site. If you happen to be using that particular social network, and then you would put in that address. If I save this right now without having entered that, the placeholder will stay there. It's kind of grayed out a little bit. But if I go out and visit the site, we'll only see the Facebook because only the Facebook has an address supplied. So it's smart enough not to display one that is just a placeholder that hasn't been filled out yet. So those are a couple of things that you might want to do right away when you get your site, because you have an important page to add, you want to rearrange the default menu, you can go ahead and do that. Now if we decide we want to change the whole look of our website, we can change to a different theme. We can also change choices within that theme for colors and so forth. So I'm going to show you how to do both of those things. So to change the theme, we can go up here to this link to the dashboard. Below that is themes. We can click on themes here, or through the dashboard. There's a section that says appearance, and themes is the first choice. So again, here are my choices. This is the one that's currently active. There's another one called Blue Banner, which is sort of similar, but we'll see how that is a little bit different in the emphasis it makes. So I'll just activate that one to show you. And that pops to the beginning. If I go out to the public site and I reload the page, we'll see that the image is now larger and it's also darker. So this is the same image, but with a blue screen over it to emphasize the contrast. And if you had an image that was less blue than the one that I was using, it would help make the contrast between the menu items and the image background. And we can show that by putting in a different image. So I'm going to choose something that doesn't have quite as much. Okay. This is somewhat random, but we'll update this. And we can see that this is not an all blue picture, but it's going to look pretty blue when we go out to the page. So it's just darkened and there's more of a blue tint to it. If you put a black and white image, that would also work well. So there are adjustments we can make within that. We'll come back to that later. So we can see that one of these looks pretty good from the preview image here, and we can just activate it. There's also this live preview feature. So here we can get an idea of what our content, the existing content of our website, would look like in this different theme. So now the featured image is still there, but it's down farther in the page. Here's what it looks like now on the front end of the site. We can click through to another page that this one doesn't have a featured image, so it just has title and then the body content. An important element of all of these themes is that they actually will resize. So for different screen size, this might be what you would see on a tablet, and this is approximately what you'd see on a mobile phone, where the menu collapses but we can get it back by clicking this little menu icon. We still have the name of our site. We still have our social media icon showing, and we still have the sign up for roles link showing. But this is an important element, and it's something to think about if you change the design, is to make sure that it still looks good, not only on a desktop computer, but on a phone. We've shown a couple of options. We could also make it look like, here's a pretty different one. This one has the navigation, instead of at a menu at the top of the page, it has it on the side. So we can scroll through here and notice that that is also sticky, that sidebar section. As I scroll up and down, that remains in view. So that's kind of nice. This is a two-column layout of all our content on the site. So if I click through to a different page, we'll see how our calendar would look in that format. This one that's labeled sticky header here has that same kind of sticky property where the menu remains visible at the top of the page. So we've changed to sticky header. And now when I scroll down, that menu remains visible even as I scroll down to the bottom of the page. Now, one of the things I most wanted to cover in this tutorial is the fact that each of these themes is only a starting point. Is you can make changes using the new tools for website design that are available in the WordPress platform. And this particular theme is actually also set up to use this dramatic image on the home page, but it doesn't use it on every single page of the site. So if we go to our calendar page, we get more of a black and white effect. This is the basic presentation. If I went to a blog post that has a featured image, then we would get a featured image up top. We just wouldn't get it in quite that same cover presentation. Although there is actually an option, if I edit the post, in the sidebar here, it tells me what template is being used to display this right now. It's one called single posts. And I can change that to a different one that is single with title and the featured image in the cover. And so this is going to give us something more like what we were seeing a moment ago on the home page. So in this version, the title of the post actually appears up top here. We do have still the menu also embedded in the title section. And again, this will scale up and down based on whether we're on a mobile phone or a tablet or a computer screen. So those are some interesting options that are available to you. But suppose I wanted to go through and use this as a starting point, but I want to make some changes. So I'm going to go back to the home page. And again, this is the one that has the blue screen on it. So this is called the blue cover theme. But we can start with this, and maybe we think that's too dark, or actually we want a different color. Maybe we think this is taking up too much space out front, that we don't want people to actually have to scroll as far before they get to some of the actual content that we're presenting. So there are trade-offs here between this is a theme that's designed to make a strong first impression visually, but you also want to make a strong first impression with that content that tells people why they should come to your club, why they should come and visit as a guest, and why they should become members. So if I go into, instead of edit page, which would edit the content of the page, I can go to Edit Site, and we'll see a little bit about what's set up here. So it is opening this theme's front page template. Now we don't see the image anymore. I'll explain why in just a moment. But we see the basic layout, that we have this space for the big image up top. This is a placeholder block down here for the core content of the page. The title goes here. We actually have a little spacer block here, which its only purpose is to create a little bit of space between the title and the rest of the content. So there are other ways that could be done by adding margin or something, but the spacer block is sometimes convenient as a little building block just to add a little extra space in wherever you need it. And we can adjust that space to be more or less depending on our requirements. But I said I was going to explain about the header. If I click in this header area, I will get some controls that allow me to edit it. And this is a block called the cover block. So it presents an image as the background image behind my cover, and within that I have embedded other content. So if I were to go and look at the hierarchy, this little list view widget up here allows me to see exactly what I've selected and how things are embedded. So this is the header with cover image. It's called a template part. It can be used in different parts of the website, but it's mainly used right here. And inside the template part, we have the cover section. And within the cover section, we have some other content. We have our site logo. We have the site title and the site tagline. And we have the navigation, our menu that goes across the top. And actually below the cover, we also have included a separate row with the content aligned towards the right that includes our button inviting people to either log in if they're not logged in yet, or to sign up for roles if they are logged in. So that's really something that's here for members. And we also have our Facebook and LinkedIn buttons. You can actually also move some of these other elements around if you want to have them aligned differently. So if we wanted the tagline for the site to appear in a different spot, we potentially could actually drag that over, and now it is appearing on its own line, just a little bit different alignment. If we want to change the styling of this, there are options to change the color that's displayed. Most of these things are white. This one is a light gray. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the background color. So you have options for background and foreground color, or maybe we want this to be the Toastmasters True Maroon color. All these colors are set up to be Toastmasters acceptable defaults, pretty much. So we're trying to guide you in the right direction in terms of brand compliance. As I mentioned, the blue cover screen is set up to use a blue filtered version of that image by default. If I make sure I've selected the cover plot, I can go to the sidebar, and there are a bunch of properties that I can set. I can go in here and to the section called Styles. So there's some settings up front, the basic dimensions. Then in Styles, we have an option to set the text color that will be used within the color block by default. Also the overlay. So the overlay is the color, the tinting that's being applied here. And right now it's a dark blue. We could change that to be Toastmasters True Maroon. To eliminate the tinting entirely, we'd turn off the color, and I'm going to make this 0. So this is something that could be ratcheted up and down. Is how much transparency do we have? How much do we have the image showing through? So this is overlay opacity that we set here. Now, another completely different way of handling this might be to use the overlay color to lighten the image. So we can set the overlay color to white, and then as we ratchet this up and down, we make it lighter or darker. So we could make it very light and then make the text color be blue by default. And I actually have to click separately on this component that has its own color settings and make sure that that is also going to be visible. Yeah, I think I like that one the best. So this is using the opacity filter. Again, the opacity filter, I have to make sure I have the cover block selected. I go to overlay. I determine what color I want that to be, and then how opaque I want it to be, how see-through I want it to be, depending on the effect that I want to achieve. So this is a fancier effect, but it can be striking if you do it right. And if we had it at 0, well, one complication is we can't read some of this text very well. There's probably other things that we could change about that to make it more visible. Definitely we could change the color. Maybe that would stand out a little bit more. But you see that there's an issue there that doesn't show up as nicely as we might want it to. And so you have to work through these things. The choice of the image is important. I do recommend against using the cover block in combination with an image that has text embedded in it, because the text of the menus and headers and the site title may overlap with the text that's in that image. Using a group photo of your club members inside the image block might, depending on how it's framed, it might or might not look good. And you have to look at it on the full-size version as well as what people would see on a mobile phone to really understand what's going on there. Now, what about the height of this? Well, if we could look at the cover image itself, it has a minimum height associated with it. But actually in this layout, that's being controlled more by this group here. Because let me try and show you by adding, we'll add a cover image from scratch, or a cover block from scratch. So I'm going to do something that's handy often for working in these hierarchies too, is this option that says add before or add after. So I'm going to add before to open up a blank area. So cover, and we'll say media library again, and let's choose this same image to see how by default a cover block is added. So by default, the cover block comes in, and whatever content that we decide to add will be centered within it. Now for this area, I wanted the menu to be up at the very top. I didn't want it to be in the center of this. So what I've done here is this cover block contains a group. So a group is just an abstract division of the page to which we can assign properties like how wide it should be and so forth. So this is a block that is set to be full width, take up the full width of the page. And then in the stylings section here, I also have a minimum height specified of 600 pixels. So pixels are just a unit of measurement in web design. I happen to know that that's a good value, but we could play with this. There is a button to kind of ratchet that up and down here, just in even steps, to get an idea of what some different sizes would look like. We can get it to approximately where we want it and then put in a number to fine-tune it further. So actually, if I take this out up here and we save this, well, now we would have a version of our website that still has this dramatic image up top, but it's a little bit shorter. So we get to our content a little bit faster. So you need to think about those trade-offs of how much do you want this to be a big dramatic image. Now I said that was going to be a minimum of 600 pixels tall, and so when I resize this down to my mobile phone size, it still retains that height, just becomes narrower. So there are, for different blocks, there are different properties you can set, and you can play around with those to achieve the effect you want. And again, we can actually see up here that this is not very readable. Again, I think with that color of the text, it actually would be handy to go in and set this color block to be the light color and to have that opacity be a little bit greater. So now we have just sort of a suggestion. People who know Star Wars will recognize that right away, but so that's what we have now. So we can see our text more clearly. We have this hint of an iconic Star Wars image in the background, but we still have readable text for all our links. So these are some of the things that you can play with. So I mentioned that I don't recommend having the text inside the cover block, and I was working with this club in District 62 that I'm helping to support, where they wanted to use this as the cover block, and that was causing some problems. That image in the cover block looks okay at certain resolutions, but if we stretch the screen wider, or if we go down to the width of a tablet or a mobile device, we start to see menu items overlapping on the text that's in the image. So that's not good. So what we did instead, to allow them similar flexibility with being able to change this image just by changing the featured image, we went into the site editor. We had actually one of these big cover or blue cover themes specified initially, and we changed that from, instead of the cover block, now this is just a block called featured image. So that's used in some of the templates by default. So we have the same basic layout, but we have the featured image. So instead of having the site title and logo and navigation embedded within the featured image, we have a separate row that's defined to contain all of that content, and then the featured image, and then our row that has the logo and the social media icons. Now the featured image also has some properties that we can set. So if we go into the stylings section, we can say that the featured image should have a default height of 200 pixels. Or we can set the default width. And some of these things will change how that fills in. There are also these options that if we do set those parameters, it asks us, do we want it to be cover the whole area, or contain, or fill? And these are defined a little bit here. Contain is that it's scaled to fit within the frame without distorting or clipping. Covering is it's scaled, but it's cropped to fit in that space. So that's not something we would want for the cover image that they have right now. Or it can fill the space, but it gets stretched out and distorted to fill that space, which again is not what we would want for something that contains text, certainly. So we would want contain for this. So if we I'm setting a maximum height of 200 pixels. I could also set a maximum width. You can do either or. And this is set to contain within that space. So now I've made this image smaller. I mean, I'm gonna go back and change this because that's not what they would want. And just for purposes of illustration, if I made it the cover setting, we get this. It's kind of cropped in a weird way, and that's not, again, not what we would want. And then the fill setting is to make it fill the space, but we're okay with it being distorted. And now we've got a squished version. So that's not what we would want. For something that was more of an abstract image, some of these settings might be okay. But I'm actually going to turn off that setting entirely, and this is what they want it to look like. Let's switch to the maroon themed banner. So this is the True Maroon approved Toastmasters brand color up top, just like the version that I showed you that had the blue banner up top. Again, a Toastmasters approved color, but perhaps we want to come in and make some changes. So I click into my heading area, and where is that color set? Well, the color is set through the group block that wraps around everything. So again, we'll show the hierarchy here. We have a group block that is set up to have this background color and to have the text be white. We could change the text to be the happy yellow theme color. Does that look good? Well, not too sure. But we could make that change if we wanted to. Let's go back to white. We could change the background color to be happy yellow. Now, Toastmasters International has told me that happy yellow is supposed to be an accent color, not as much of a dominant color, so they might not approve of that. There is a cool gray choice that we could use. And that's pretty good, except the site tagline has disappeared into the background. In order to make that visible, I would need to make it white. Or maybe that could be yellow. Just a little yellow accent there. So we could save that and see what our site looks like now. Suppose we want that banner up top to be a little bit skinnier. So we don't want people to have to scroll down as much until they get to our content. Well, that's being set by this property called padding. So padding defines the space inside the block. In this case, it's the group block. And so I can ratchet that up or down. There's left and right padding, and then there's top to bottom padding. It's really the top to bottom padding we would want to change. We could actually make that 0 and it should look pretty good. Let's see. Okay, so this is now just a bit more compact up top. We could add a border around this. So if we want to have a maroon border around the outside, we can decide how thick that should be. I'm not necessarily saying that all these things are beautiful or improvements, but they're things that we could think through. Well, maybe we like the idea of having both of those theme colors up top. So we could have the true maroon border, and then we could have our loyal blue background color. Let's see if that looks good. Well, it's interesting. I don't know whether I like it better, but I'm just trying to show you how you would change some of these options. Now again, some of you might not want to get this ambitious or involved. You might just want to change your menu, set your social media icons, and be on about your business. But I'm trying to show you what kind of changes are possible. In addition to a background color, it is possible to set a background image for this, sort of like what we do with the cover image. And so I could open my media library and decide I want to use this as the background image. And that sort of looks okay. I don't think we can really tell what it's supposed to be. What if we did this thing as the background image? Well, I don't know. But it might, there are effects that you can achieve with a background image that wouldn't be as easy to achieve with just the color. And then if I want to turn that off, I say reset here, and that goes away. Now with most of these elements, there are options in the stylings where we can set the padding, top and bottom, left and right. We can set a margin. So the margin is outside of the element. How much space do we want to reserve? Whereas the padding is how much inside do we want to contain things a little bit. So particularly for the content block, this is important, is how wide do we want it to be? What is the spacing we want? There's a way of setting the minimum height for your content block. So maybe you, even on a short page, you want it to be at least 800 pixels tall. And we can see how that works, where even a page that only has a little bit of content, you'd have to scroll down a little bit to get to the disclaimer part. So again, I don't necessarily know whether that's good or bad. We want to change the featured image that appears at the top. So this is not in the header, this is in the main area of the post. Under the title, this theme is set up to have a featured image. And again, how much padding do we want to have around that? Do we want to have an overlay? That's also possible with this. There's a thing called duotone, where it's just an effect that's sort of, well, let's go out and look at it. So we had this image here, and I set it to duotone, and that gives it kind of a funky look, sort of a sepia look, I guess. And again, clear that, turn that off. If I wanted to have, let's see, okay. If I wanted to do an overlay, again, here with the featured image at the top of each post, not in the header, but within the body area, I could also do true maroon and make it 50%. And you have to decide whether this is an effect that you want to be applied to every single image, that appears on your site. So that's a little bit blue. I could change it to be, how about a black one? We just want to make it darker. 80%, so you're going to have a featured image, but it's going to be very, very faded. All right. So the point here is only that there are lots of things that you can control. There's more options available than I know about. I'm still learning my way around some of this myself. But I hope this has been a good introduction to how you change your theme, how you change the basic elements, such as the menu, which pretty much everybody's going to need to change. And if you want to make wilder changes, you can do it. Try and stay within the Toastmasters approved brand guidelines to avoid causing difficulties. But we do have the theme approved colors here ready and waiting for you to guide you in the right direction.